My name is Cassandra, and at 29 years old, I never imagined my own family would try to destroy my life. We were always close, or so I thought. My recent promotion seemed to change everything, creating a jealousy in my sister I never saw coming. The day police officers showed up at my door with Rebecca standing behind them, pointing fingers, I felt my world collapse. The worst part: my parents stood right beside her, nodding along with every false accusation. How could my own family betray me so completely? Before I continue my story, let me know where you are watching from in the comments. Hit that like button and subscribe to hear how I fought back against this unimaginable betrayal. Growing up, I worked incredibly hard for everything I achieved. I graduated from Cornell University on a full academic scholarship, something my parents bragged about to everyone they knew. After graduation, I landed a position at Everest Financial Partners, one of the most prestigious firms in the industry. My colleagues knew me as hardworking, honest, and detail-oriented. Just 3 months ago, I received a promotion to senior financial analyst, along with recognition in our industry newsletter as a rising star to watch. I had finally saved enough to rent a beautiful apartment just 15 minutes from my parents in the same peaceful suburb where I grew up. Our family always presented itself as solidly middle class with high expectations. My father, Thomas, worked as an engineer while my mother, Margaret, taught high school English. They pushed us to excel academically, but the standards always seemed different for my sister and me. Rebecca, 2 years younger at 27, struggled with school from an early age. She needed tutors throughout elementary and high school, barely maintaining a C average despite extensive help. As Rebecca's academic difficulties continued, my parents became increasingly protective of her. They would minimize her poor grades with comments like, "Not everyone tests well," or "Grades aren't everything." Meanwhile, if I brought home anything less than an A, questions would follow about what went wrong. At family gatherings, relatives would ask about my achievements while offering Rebecca sympathetic smiles. Holiday celebrations often revealed the favoritism more clearly. Last Christmas, I received a practical set of cooking utensils, while Rebecca unwrapped an expensive designer handbag. When I expressed surprise at the disparity, my mother simply said, "Rebecca needs more cheering up than you do." These small instances accumulated over the years, creating an unspoken tension between us. The situation deteriorated rapidly when Rebecca lost her third job in 2 years, this time from a small private school where she taught music part-time. She claimed personality conflicts with administration, but I later learned she had repeatedly missed classes without explanation. Her financial problems mounted as credit card bills piled up. She approached me numerous times for loans, which I provided against my better judgment. The last time I transferred $2,000 to her account for what she called emergency rent, only to see her post vacation photos from Miami Beach the following week. When I confronted her about the misused funds, Rebecca exploded, saying I was flaunting my success and always thought I was better than everyone. My parents intervened, suggesting I should be more understanding of her difficult situation. The argument ended with my father stating plainly that Rebecca was more sensitive and needed family support, implying I should simply accept the financial loss. What my family conveniently ignored was Rebecca's developing substance abuse problem. Twice I had found her incoherent at family dinners, and once discovered prescription pills in her purse that did not match any medication she had mentioned. When I carefully broached the subject with my parents, they dismissed my concerns as exaggeration and accused me of trying to make Rebecca look bad. The tension escalated when Rebecca moved back home with our parents after losing her apartment. This coincided with my receiving the Beacon Award for Financial Innovation, complete with a feature in our local business journal. My mother invited me to dinner supposedly to celebrate, but the evening quickly turned uncomfortable. "Some people get all the luck," Rebecca commented, pushing food around her plate. "It was not luck," I corrected her gently. "I worked 60-hour weeks for 3 years to develop that investment strategy." "Well, we cannot all be perfect like Cassandra," she snapped, while my parents exchanged worried glances. The dinner devolved into a heated argument when Rebecca accused me of abandoning family because I had declined to co-sign on a car loan for her the previous month. As I gathered my things to leave, she followed me to the door. "You think you are so untouchable in your perfect life," she whispered, her eyes narrowed. "Maybe it is time someone took you down a notch." I dismissed her comment as typical sisterly jealousy, never imagining she meant it literally. Looking back, I should have paid more attention to her increasingly erratic behavior and the suspicious new friends who occasionally picked her up from our parents' house. One in particular, a man with multiple tattoos who never exited his car, would wait while Rebecca ran out for brief conversations. I mentioned him once to my mother, who merely shrugged and said Rebecca was expanding her social circle. The warning signs became more apparent in the weeks before the incident. Twice I spotted Rebecca with people I did not recognize in my neighborhood miles from our parents' home. When I texted to ask if she had been nearby, she denied it, claiming she had been home all day. My parents, usually quick to respond to messages, became increasingly distant. They canceled our regular Sunday brunch 2 weeks in a row with vague excuses about prior commitments. More disturbing were the signs that someone had been in my apartment. Nothing valuable disappeared, but items were slightly out of place. My desk drawer, which I always kept organized, appeared rummaged through. My spare bathroom towels were rearranged. When I installed a simple security camera in my living room, the footage showed nothing, but the uneasy feeling persisted. Then I remembered the spare key I had given my parents for emergencies the previous year. When I casually asked my mother if she still had it during a brief phone conversation, she paused too long before answering yes. That same week, I received 3 phone calls from unknown numbers. Each time I answered, the caller hung up immediately. On the day that changed everything, I worked late finalizing a major client portfolio. My phone's silence during the client meeting showed 7 missed calls when I checked it at 9:30 p.m. 4 were from unknown numbers, 2 from my parents' landline and 1 from Rebecca. No messages. Concerned, I tried calling back, but no one answered. Driving home, I rehearsed a presentation in my head, completely unaware of what awaited me. Turning onto my street at nearly 10 p.m., my headlights illuminated 3 police vehicles parked outside my building. Neighbors stood in doorways and on balconies watching the scene unfold. My stomach dropped when I recognized my parents' car parked nearby. As I approached the building entrance, 2 uniformed officers intercepted me. Behind them stood Rebecca, tears streaming down her face in what I would later recognize as an Oscar-worthy performance. My parents stood a few feet away, my mother clutching her purse with white knuckles, my father staring at the ground. "Are you Cassandra Mitchell?" one officer asked, checking my driver's license. "Yes. What is happening? Is everyone okay?" I looked toward my family, but they avoided eye contact. "We received a complaint about illegal substances in your apartment," the officer explained. "Your sister expressed concern about your welfare and reported suspicious activity. We obtained a warrant to search the premises." My mind raced as they escorted me upstairs. The door to my apartment stood open, and additional officers moved around inside. One emerged from my bedroom holding an evidence bag containing what appeared to be several small packets of white powder. "These were found in your closet behind a stack of sweaters," he stated flatly. "That is impossible," I said, my voice shaking. "Those are not mine. I have never seen them before." Rebecca stepped forward, a trembling hand covering her mouth. "I saw you with those last week," she said. "I came to borrow a dress and you were using something. I was terrified for you." I stared at her in disbelief. "That never happened. I was working late every night last week. You never came over." My mother finally spoke, her voice barely audible. "We have noticed changes in you, Cassandra. The late hours, the canceled visits, the mood swings." "You have been different," my father added, still not meeting my eyes. "More secretive." Rebecca nodded vigorously. I found her behavior so concerning. As her sister, I could not stay silent any longer. While the officers continued searching my apartment, I made desperate eye contact with my mother, silently pleading for her to tell the truth. She looked away, her lips pressed into a thin line. My father put his arm around Rebecca, who continued to sob dramatically into a tissue. Then I heard it. Rebecca whispered to my parents when she thought no one could hear, "Stick to the story. It will be fine." In that moment, understanding crashed over me like a tidal wave. This was not a misunderstanding. This was a deliberate setup. My own sister had planted drugs in my apartment and created a fictional narrative about my behavior. Even worse, my parents were knowingly supporting her lies. The cold metal of handcuffs closed around my wrists as the officers formally arrested me. They read my rights as neighbors watched from the hallway. The senior officer explained the charges: possession of a controlled substance. My professional reputation, my career, my future all hung in the balance as I was led away, betrayed by the people I should have been able to trust most in the world. The police car ride through my neighborhood ranks among the most humiliating experiences of my life. Neighbors I had greeted pleasantly for years stood on their porches watching as officers placed me in the back seat. Through the window, I glimpsed Rebecca, accepting what appeared to be comforting words from an elderly couple who lived next door to me. The betrayal burned like acid. At the police station, the processing felt surreal. Fingerprinting, mugshot, surrender of personal belongings. Each step increased my sense of disbelief. The booking officer asked routine questions in a bored voice as if my world were not collapsing. When asked about drug use history, I vehemently denied ever using illegal substances. The officer merely shrugged, clearly having heard similar protests before. The holding cell contained 3 other women. One slept curled on a bench, another stared blankly at the wall, while the third, a young woman with faded tattoos, assessed me with curious eyes. First time she asked. I nodded, unable to form words. What for? Drugs, but they are not mine, I managed to say. She laughed without humor. Honey, that is what everyone says. That night stretched endlessly. The fluorescent lights never dimmed, the hard bench offered no comfort, and my thoughts raced in chaotic circles. How had Rebecca obtained illegal drugs? Why would my parents participate in such an elaborate lie? What would happen to my job? By morning, my eyes burned from sleeplessness, and reality had begun to sink in with crushing weight. The initial hearing occurred the following afternoon. The court-appointed attorney, Mr. Jenkins, met with me for exactly 7 minutes before proceedings began. He looked overworked and underprepared, his tie stained, and his case notes minimal. Possession first offense, he muttered, scanning my file. We will request reasonable bail. Given your employment and lack of record, it should be manageable. Entering the courtroom, I immediately spotted my parents sitting directly behind Rebecca in the gallery. My sister had transformed her appearance completely. Gone were the dramatic tears, replaced by a somber, concerned expression. She wore conservative clothing and minimal makeup, looking every bit the worried sister. My parents appeared exhausted but resolute. The judge set bail at $15,000, an amount impossible for me to produce immediately. When Mr. Jenkins mentioned family assistance, I watched my father shake his head slightly. They had no intention of helping me. Your Honor, my client will need time to arrange funds, Mr. Jenkins stated. Back in jail, the reality of abandonment hit fully. 5 more days passed before I would be released. During that time, I cycled through emotions. Disbelief gave way to rage, then to profound sadness, then back to anger. My appetite disappeared completely. The jail food, already unappetizing, remained untouched on my tray. Sleep came in brief, troubled intervals. My cellmate, a woman named Diane, serving 30 days for shoplifting, became an unexpected source of wisdom. Family betrayal cuts deepest, she told me after hearing my story. My brother testified against me to save himself. That pain never really goes away, but you learn to build around it. On the 3rd day, my body began manifesting stress physically. Tension headaches pounded behind my eyes. My hands trembled slightly. The jail nurse noted elevated blood pressure, but offered only generic advice to try relaxing. The irony of such a suggestion in jail nearly made me laugh hysterically. My parents visited on the 4th day. The meeting room contained several small tables where inmates could speak with visitors. No physical contact was permitted. They sat stiffly across from me, both looking uncomfortable but determined. How are you holding up? My father asked formally, as if inquiring about a minor inconvenience. How do you think I responded, struggling to control my voice? I am in jail for something I did not do because my sister lied and you supported her. My mother glanced around nervously. Cassandra, we think you should consider confessing to get a lighter sentence. First-time offenders often get probation, especially with a good attorney. The suggestion left me speechless momentarily. Confess to something I did not do. Why would I destroy my career and reputation by admitting to a crime I did not commit? My father leaned forward, his voice low. Rebecca is about to secure a position teaching music at Westview Academy. Any association with a drug scandal would ruin her chances permanently. Your career is already established. You could recover from this setback. Sometimes family means sacrifice. My mother added, her expression pleading. It would not be so bad, probably just probation and community service. You want me to sacrifice my future for Rebecca's lies? The unfairness of their request stunned me. Just think about it, my father said, standing to indicate the visit was over. It would be best for everyone. They left without waiting for my response, without offering any support or expressing any doubt about Rebecca's story. Their betrayal felt complete. A guard noticed my distress after they departed and unexpectedly offered me a tissue and a moment of privacy before escorting me back to my cell. That night, alone on my bunk while others slept, I made a decision. I would not become a sacrifice for my sister's schemes or my parents' misguided protection. Somehow, I would fight back. On my 5th day in jail, I used my phone privileges to make a collect call to Natalie Chen, my college roommate, who had become a trusted friend. Unlike my family, Natalie responded with immediate support. "This is ridiculous, Cass," she said after hearing my abbreviated explanation. "I know you. This is not you." Her instant belief brought the first tears I had allowed myself since the arrest. "I need help, Nat. My parents are backing Rebecca's story. I cannot afford a decent attorney on my own." "Consider it handled," she replied without hesitation. "My cousin Lauren is a criminal defense attorney. She is brilliant and ruthless. I am calling her right after we hang up." True to her word, Natalie arranged for attorney Lauren Mitchell to visit me the following morning. Lauren arrived carrying a sleek leather portfolio and an air of confident competence that provided my first real sense of hope. "Tell me everything," she instructed, including details that might seem unimportant. For nearly 2 hours, Lauren listened, taking meticulous notes. She asked pointed questions about Rebecca's behavior patterns, financial situation, and recent activities. When I mentioned Rebecca's drug connections and my parents' willful blindness, she nodded thoughtfully. "This does not add up," Lauren said finally. "Your sister's story has significant holes. The timeline is problematic, and her motivation seems clear. Let me handle your bail today, and we will start building your defense immediately." By that afternoon, Natalie had organized several friends to pool resources for my bail. Walking out of jail, even under the cloud of pending charges, felt like taking my first full breath in days. Natalie insisted I stay with her rather than return to my compromised apartment. "Your sister clearly had access," she pointed out. "We cannot risk her planting anything else." The next day, Lauren hosted a strategy session at her office. The sleek conference room with its city views stood in stark contrast to the jail cell I had occupied days earlier. First, Lauren began, "We need to understand exactly what Rebecca hoped to gain from this setup. The most obvious motive is jealousy, but there may be more. Rebecca has always resented my success," I acknowledged, "but this level of sabotage seems extreme even for her." Lauren tapped her pen thoughtfully. "Has Rebecca ever shown interest in your work, your clients, your connections?" The question triggered a memory. She asked a lot of questions about my client portfolio after my promotion. I thought she was just making conversation, but she seemed particularly interested in our high net worth clients. "Interesting," Lauren noted. "Let me ask you this. If you were suddenly discredited, would Rebecca have any way to benefit professionally or financially?" I considered this. My reputation would be destroyed. My firm would certainly terminate me. My clients would likely be reassigned to other analysts within the company. Could Rebecca access those client relationships through someone else at your firm? Actually, yes. She briefly dated someone from our marketing department last year, Marcus. They ended things badly, but she recently mentioned running into him again. Lauren's expression sharpened. "That is potentially significant. Now let me share our next steps. I have hired a private investigator to look into Rebecca's recent activities, finances, and connections. Meanwhile, we need to establish your character and reputation as beyond reproach." Over the next several days, the investigation yielded disturbing discoveries. Lauren's PI found Rebecca had accumulated over $40,000 in credit card debt across 6 different cards. Despite her unemployment, she had somehow made minimum payments and continued making expensive purchases, including designer clothing and electronics. More damning, the PI photographed Rebecca meeting with a man identified as Jason Reeves, who had previous arrests for drug distribution. Their meetings occurred in a coffee shop 3 blocks from my apartment building. Perhaps most conclusive, my building manager confirmed Rebecca had visited multiple times in the weeks before my arrest, claiming she was watering my plants while I worked late. On one occasion, she had casually inquired about the security camera system, specifically asking which areas might not be covered by existing cameras. The basement storage area and the back stairwell do not have camera coverage, the manager had told her. Information Rebecca apparently found useful. Lauren's team also discovered evidence that Rebecca had researched drug possession charges online with browser history, showing searches for drug possession penalties. First, offense and planting evidence. Legal consequences on public. Library computers. As our case strengthened, Lauren began collecting character witness statements from my colleagues and friends. My direct supervisor provided a written statement affirming my professional integrity and steady performance. Human Resources supplied my spotless employment record. My doctor confirmed I had no history of substance abuse issues, and my regular physical showed no signs consistent with drug use. When Lauren secured a meeting with the prosecutor, Assistant District Attorney Wilson, she strategically revealed just enough of our findings to indicate the weaknesses in the state's case. My client has no history of drug use, no motive to possess illegal substances, and substantial evidence, suggesting she was framed by a resentful sibling with documented financial problems and connections to known drug dealers. Lauren summarized coolly. Wilson's expression remained neutral, but his increased blinking rate betrayed his concern. These are serious allegations against the state's witness. They are indeed, Lauren agreed, and we have only shared the preliminary findings. Our investigation continues. As we left the prosecutor's office, Lauren smiled slightly. He is worried. The case against you was thin from the start, mostly built on family testimony. Now that we have cast reasonable doubt on that testimony, he will be reviewing everything more carefully. Our most alarming discovery came later that week. The PI uncovered emails suggesting Rebecca had been planning to access my client files, potentially to redirect investment opportunities or extract financial information. One message to an unknown recipient stated, "Once C is discredited, I can access everything through M. The transition will look natural given the circumstances." M is likely Marcus, I realized. She was planning to use my disgrace as a way to gain access to my clients through him. Lauren nodded grimly. This appears to be more than simple jealousy. This was a calculated attempt to hijack your professional identity. With each new piece of evidence, my determination grew stronger. What had begun as a fight to clear my name had evolved into exposing a complex scheme of betrayal that went far deeper than I had imagined. The investigation reached a critical point when Lauren's PI recovered deleted text messages from Rebecca's cloud backup. Rebecca had been careless with her digital footprint, assuming no one would ever search that thoroughly. The messages revealed explicit planning between Rebecca and Jason Reeves. Got the product. One message from Reeves stated, "Clean, uncut, impossible to trace." Rebecca's response chilled me. "Perfect. Make sure it is enough to look serious, but not enough for major charges. I just need her out of the way for a while." More disturbing were messages between Rebecca and our parents that showed they had partial, though apparently incomplete, knowledge of her plans. My mother had texted, "Are you sure this intervention approach is necessary? Perhaps we could just talk to her." Rebecca responded, "Trust me, Mom. This is the only way to help her see she needs to change her priorities. Sometimes people need a wake-up call." My father's message was equally misguided. "We transferred the money for the intervention counselor. Make sure they are reputable." Lauren explained the likely scenario. Based on these messages, it appears Rebecca convinced your parents that she was organizing some sort of dramatic intervention for supposed substance abuse issues. They provided money thinking it was for professional help, not realizing she was actually purchasing drugs to plant in your apartment. Bank records confirmed my parents had transferred $3,000 to Rebecca the day before my arrest, labeled in their banking app as Cassandra Health Help. Additional evidence emerged from my neighbor's security camera, which captured footage of Rebecca entering my building, carrying a small package on the afternoon of my arrest. The timestamp showed she had visited merely 3 hours before the police arrived. Rebecca's online activity revealed searches for drug possession, sentencing, financial analyst disbarment rules, and most alarmingly accessing financial records of disgraced advisor. Her browser history also showed multiple visits to identity theft forums and websites explaining how to assume someone's professional identity. The most damning evidence came unexpectedly. Rebecca had kept a detailed journal which the PI located in her car during a legal search. The journal contained explicit plans for what she called Operation Reset, including Step 1. Establish C's supposed drug problem with parents, done. Step 2. Acquire product from J, ensure clean, done. Step 3. Plant evidence during apartment visit. Done. Step 4. Call in concerned report with parents as backup. Done. Step 5. Once C is discredited, connect with Marcus to transition clients. Step 6. Establish myself as responsible family member who can manage C's affairs during recovery. Step 7. Access C's client list and financial models. Step 8. Approach key clients through Marcus, offering continuity. Most shocking was a voice recording on Rebecca's phone that she had apparently made accidentally. In it, she could be heard discussing her plans with someone with our parents' voices audible in the background. Rebecca. They will not know exactly what happened until it is too late. Unknown male voice, and your parents are on board with all of this. Rebecca. They think we are doing an intervention for her supposed drug problem. They have no idea about the client list or Marcus. Mother's voice, distant. Rebecca is the intervention counselor here yet. Rebecca, coming soon. Mom, just finalizing details. Father's voice, distant. This better work. I hate seeing you girls at odds. Rebecca, lowering voice. Trust me, this solves everything. Cassandra gets the help they think she needs, and I get what I deserve. With this recording, Lauren secured a warrant for Rebecca's complete phone records, revealing extensive communications with Marcus about accessing my client information and approaching my firm's management once the dust settles. Most disturbing were Rebecca's attempts to use my personal information. The investigation uncovered 3 credit card applications submitted in my name after my arrest, along with inquiries to my bank about account access protocols in case of incapacitation. Lauren also discovered communications between Rebecca and a competitor firm suggesting she had been exploring ways to leverage my client relationships once I was discredited. One email mentioned bringing over the Mitchell portfolio once the transition is complete. With overwhelming evidence in hand, Lauren arranged a pretrial meeting with my family and their hastily hired attorney. The conference room at Lauren's firm provided a neutral setting for what would prove to be an explosive confrontation. Rebecca arrived with our parents, all 3 looking tense, but maintaining an air of righteous concern. Their attorney, a nervous man named Gerald Porter, began with standard platitudes about family concern and good intentions. Lauren listened politely, then methodically presented our evidence, beginning with the building security footage and escalating to the recovered text messages. With each revelation, my parents' expressions shifted from confidence to confusion to growing horror. When Lauren played the accidental voice recording, my mother's face went completely pale. My father, usually quick with responses, sat in stunned silence. This was never about helping Cassandra, Lauren concluded. This was a calculated plan to destroy her reputation, steal her professional identity, and potentially commit financial fraud using her credentials. Rebecca attempted to maintain her innocence. These are misunderstandings. The drugs must have belonged to one of Cassandra's friends. I was truly concerned about her behavior. Lauren smiled thinly and opened Rebecca's journal to the Operation Reset page, sliding it across the table. Misunderstandings documented in your own handwriting. That will be difficult to explain to a jury. My parents stared at the journal, then at Rebecca, dawning comprehension in their eyes. You said this was an intervention, my mother whispered. You said Cassandra needed help. She does need help, Rebecca insisted. She works too much, she does not share her success. She has always been the favorite. So you planted drugs in my apartment and called the police. I finally spoke, my voice shaking with anger. You tried to destroy my career and steal my clients. And you too, I turned to my parents. You believed the worst about me without a single question. You were willing to sacrifice my future for her lies. My father started to speak, then stopped, the weight of their mistake finally sinking in. Rebecca's attorney, recognizing the deteriorating situation, suggested a brief recess. When we reconvened, his tone had changed completely. "My client may be interested in discussing a plea arrangement," he stated quietly. Lauren nodded. "That would be wise. The evidence supports charges of filing a false police report, evidence tampering, attempted identity theft, conspiracy, and potentially drug possession with intent to distribute, depending on how the prosecution views her acquisition of the POSIS substances." My parents remained silent, the magnitude of their complicity finally clear to them. My mother attempted to reach for my hand across the table. I withdrew it firmly. "We did not understand," she began. "You did not want to understand," I corrected her. "You chose to believe the worst about me because it was easier than acknowledging the truth about Rebecca. You were willing to let me go to jail to lose everything I worked for rather than question her story." "We made a terrible mistake," my father admitted, his voice barely audible. "Yes," I agreed, standing to leave. "You did." As Lauren and I gathered our materials to depart, the emotional toll of the confrontation finally hit me. In the privacy of the elevator, I leaned against the wall, exhausted from the intensity of finally facing my family with the truth. "You did well in there," Lauren commented quietly. "The hardest part is behind you now." But we both knew that while the legal battle might soon end in my favor, the emotional wounds from this family betrayal would take much longer to heal. The weeks before the trial involved intense preparation. Lauren and her team organized our evidence, meticulously creating clear timelines and visual presentations that would make the conspiracy against me undeniable to any jury. We prepared for various scenarios, including the possibility that Rebecca might change her story again. The prosecutor, now fully aware of the problematic nature of his case, offered a deal to dismiss all charges if I would agree not to pursue civil action against the police department for the arrest. Lauren negotiated additional terms, including complete expungement of my record. "They want this to go away quietly," she explained. "The idea that they arrested an innocent person based on fabricated evidence from family members makes the department look incompetent." Despite the offer, I insisted on a formal hearing. "I need this to be public," I told Lauren. "I need my name cleared completely and officially." The night before the hearing, I barely slept. Staying at Natalie's apartment had provided safety and support, but nothing could calm the storm of emotions the next day would bring. I practiced breathing techniques my therapist had recommended with limited success. Morning arrived with a sense of finality. I dressed carefully in a conservative navy suit, applied minimal makeup, and styled my hair simply. My appearance needed to project professionalism and reliability, countering any lingering doubts about my character. "Remember," Lauren advised as we drove to the courthouse, "stay calm, regardless of what is said. Let the evidence speak for itself." Television crews gathered outside the courthouse, the unusual nature of the case having attracted local media attention. Lauren guided me through the crowd with a protective arm, deflecting questions with practiced ease. The courtroom itself felt imposing with its dark wood paneling and formal atmosphere. I scanned the gallery, spotting my parents sitting awkwardly in the middle section. They had attempted to contact me multiple times since our confrontation, leaving voicemails expressing regret and confusion. I had not responded. Rebecca sat at the defense table with her attorney, her appearance notably subdued. Gone were the designer clothes, replaced by a modest blouse and skirt. She kept her eyes downcast, avoiding my gaze entirely. Judge Harriet Coleman called the court to order, her authoritative voice silencing the murmurs throughout the room. The proceeding began with the prosecutor, Ada Wilson, presenting the original charges against me. His presentation lacked conviction, suggesting he was fulfilling procedural requirements while preparing for withdrawal. Lauren's cross-examination of the arresting officers revealed critical flaws in the investigation. The officers admitted they had conducted only minimal verification of Rebecca's claims before obtaining the warrant. They had not investigated whether I had any history of drug use, nor had they questioned the convenient timing of Rebecca's discovery. Officer Brandt, Lauren asked, "Is it standard procedure to obtain a search warrant based solely on the testimony of a family member without any corroborating evidence?" The officer shifted uncomfortably. "Each situation is evaluated based on available information." And in this situation, did you verify Miss Rebecca Mitchell's claims through any independent sources before executing the warrant? No, ma'am. Did you find it unusual that Miss Rebecca Mitchell claimed to have witnessed drug use, but waited several days to report it? In retrospect, yes. Dr. Eleanor Simmons, a toxicology expert, testified that my blood and hair samples taken voluntarily after my release showed no evidence of drug use within the previous 6 months. Based on these comprehensive tests, Dr. Simmons stated there is no scientific evidence supporting any history of drug use by Cassandra Mitchell. The turning point came when Lauren played the accidentally recorded conversation for the court. Rebecca's voice filled the silent courtroom, clearly outlining her intentions to discredit me and access my clients. The recording continued with my parents' voices in the background, revealing their unwitting role in the scheme. As the recording played, I watched my mother's face. She stared straight ahead, tears streaming silently down her cheeks. My father placed his head in his hands, unable to look at anyone. Rebecca's attorney whispered urgently to her, likely advising her to maintain composure. Judge Coleman's expression grew increasingly severe as she listened. When the recording ended, she removed her glasses and addressed Rebecca directly. "Young lady, am I understanding correctly that you deliberately planted illegal substances in your sister's residence with the intention of having her arrested?" Rebecca whispered something to her attorney, who stood quickly. "Your Honor, we request a brief recess to confer with our client." "Granted. 15 minutes. During the recess, frantic conversations occurred at the defense table. Rebecca appeared to be arguing with her attorney, while my parents watched helplessly from the gallery. When court resumed, Rebecca's attorney approached the bench with the prosecutor. After a brief conference, Ada Wilson turned to address the judge. "Your Honor, in light of new evidence, the state moves to dismiss all charges against Cassandra Mitchell. Furthermore, we are prepared to file charges against Rebecca Mitchell for filing a false police report, evidence tampering, and conspiracy." Judge Coleman nodded gravely. "Motion granted. Miss Cassandra Mitchell, all charges against you are hereby dismissed." She turned to me directly. "The court apologizes for the ordeal you have endured." As she spoke, 2 court officers approached Rebecca. Her attorney explained quietly that she was being taken into custody on the new charges. Rebecca's composure finally broke as the reality of her situation became clear. "This is not fair," she exclaimed. "They were helping me. They knew." My parents appeared stunned by this accusation, the final betrayal in Rebecca's web of deception. The court officers led Rebecca away as she continued to protest, her voice fading down the corridor. Judge Coleman addressed my parents before concluding. "The court strongly suggests you reflect on your role in these events. While you may not have understood the full extent of your daughter's plans, your willingness to support false accusations without verification caused significant harm." Lauren's final negotiation with the prosecutor ensured my record would be completely expunged, as though the arrest had never occurred. We left the courthouse through a side entrance to avoid the press, though Lauren had prepared a brief statement emphasizing the importance of proper investigation before making serious accusations. As we walked to the car, my parents attempted to approach. I raised a hand to stop them. "Not now," I said firmly. "Perhaps not ever." The victory felt hollow in many ways. My name was cleared, but the trust I had placed in my family was irreparably damaged. Still, as Lauren reminded me, truth prevailed. That matters. The days following the court hearing brought a flood of emotions I was ill-prepared to process. Media coverage of the case appeared on local news and in the business section of our city paper. Most reports focused on the unusual nature of the family betrayal and the importance of proper evidence verification in drug cases. I declined all interview requests, issuing only a brief statement through Lauren about the importance of truth prevailing. "In every family dispute, facts matter more than appearances," I stated. "I am grateful to those who looked beyond accusations to find truth." Returning to my apartment proved challenging. Though I had it professionally cleaned and installed an advanced security system, the space still felt violated. Rebecca's presence lingered in my mind each time I opened my closet or used my kitchen. After 2 weeks of restless nights, I began searching for a new place to live. My employer, Everest Financial, responded with unexpected support. The CEO personally called to express the company's confidence in my integrity and offered 2 weeks of paid leave to sort things out. My direct supervisor made it clear my position remained secure, though I sensed curious glances from colleagues who had undoubtedly heard about the case. Neighbors who had witnessed my arrest now offered awkward smiles or avoided eye contact entirely. One elderly woman, who had always been friendly, stopped me in the hallway to say she never believed those terrible accusations. For a minute, though, I recalled her watching with evident judgment as police led me away. Rebecca accepted a plea deal that included probation, community service, and mandatory counseling. She avoided jail time primarily due to her lack of prior criminal record. The terms of her probation prohibited any contact with me, a restriction I found immensely relieving. According to Lauren, who maintained contact with the prosecutor, Rebecca continued to minimize her actions, portraying herself as misunderstood rather than malicious. My parents made numerous attempts to reconnect. They left voicemails, sent emails, and even waited outside my building one evening until the security guard asked them to leave. Each message expressed regret without true understanding of the damage they had caused. We thought we were helping my mother repeat it, as though good intentions could erase their betrayal. My initial feelings of vindication gradually gave way to deeper hurt as the reality of family betrayal settled in. The triumph of legal victory could not fill the void left by broken trust. In my second week of leave, I experienced my first panic attack while shopping for groceries. The sudden, overwhelming anxiety sent me to the emergency room, certain I was having a heart attack. The diagnosis of acute stress reaction prompted me to seek professional help. Dr. Melissa Winters, a therapist specializing in family trauma, became an essential part of my healing journey. Our weekly sessions provided space to process the complex emotions surrounding the betrayal. Family betrayal creates a unique kind of wound, Dr. Winters explained during our first session. The people meant to protect you became a source of harm. That violates a fundamental trust. Through therapy, I began identifying patterns in my family dynamics that had existed long before the recent events. Rebecca's jealousy and my parents' enabling behavior had roots reaching back to our childhood. I had spent years accepting imbalanced treatment, making excuses for their behavior, and suppressing my own feelings to maintain family harmony. In addition to individual therapy, I joined a support group for victims of false accusations. The stories shared by others facing similar betrayals provided both perspective and community. One woman, falsely accused of embezzlement by a business partner, became a close friend and valuable source of encouragement. Physically, I began healing through regular exercise and meditation. Morning runs helped clear the anxiety that frequently clouded my thoughts. Yoga classes provided techniques for managing stress responses. Gradually, the headaches diminished, my sleep improved, and my appetite returned. Professionally, I returned to work with renewed focus and boundaries. I declined client dinners and weekend events for several months, focusing instead on rebuilding my sense of security. My work itself became therapeutic, the familiar routines and measurable outcomes, providing stability amid emotional turmoil. 3 months after the court hearing, I received a detailed letter from my parents. Unlike their previous attempts at contact, this message acknowledged specific actions and their consequences without excuses. They admitted to enabling Rebecca's jealousy, ignoring warning signs, and failing to question her claims. The letter ended with a request not for forgiveness, but for the opportunity to begin repairing the relationship, however slowly necessary. I spent weeks considering their request, discussing it thoroughly with Dr. Winters. Forgiveness and reconciliation are separate processes, she reminded me. You can forgive without resuming the relationship, or you can establish new boundaries while working toward healing. During this period of contemplation, my father's brother Michael reached out unexpectedly. Uncle Mike had been estranged from the family for years due to conflicts with my father. His perspective proved invaluable. Rebecca has always been the squeaky wheel getting the grease, he observed during our lunch meeting. Your parents mistook your independence for not needing them while interpreting Rebecca's demands as signs she needed more support. It created a dysfunctional system. Thanksgiving arrived with a difficult decision. Rather than joining family as tradition dictated, I accepted Natalie's invitation to celebrate with her family. The day passed without the tension I had come to expect from family gatherings, reinforcing my realization that family could be chosen, not merely inherited. By Christmas, I had moved into a new apartment in a different neighborhood. The fresh start provided emotional space to rebuild. I began cautiously dating again, learning to trust my judgment about people despite recent experiences. A coffee date with a colleague's brother led to pleasant conversation, but no pressure for more, a welcome contrast to the intensity of recent months. My career advanced unexpectedly when the firm's management recognized my composure under pressure. Anyone who can maintain professionalism through personal challenges of that magnitude has the resilience we need in leadership, my supervisor explained, while offering a position managing a team of junior analysts. The one-year anniversary of my arrest brought reflection rather than renewed pain. In my journal, I wrote, "A year ago, I believed family meant unconditional support. Today, I understand that healthy relationships require truth, respect, and boundaries. My worth is not determined by others' treatment of me. My integrity speaks for itself through consistent actions. The betrayal nearly broke me, but rebuilding has made me stronger, wiser, and more authentic." My relationship with my parents evolved gradually. We began with occasional phone calls, then brief coffee meetings in public places. Each interaction operated under new, explicit boundaries. They attended family counseling sessions to address their enabling patterns with Rebecca, whom I still maintained no contact with. Progress came slowly, with occasional setbacks when old patterns emerged. Perhaps the most meaningful development in my healing journey was my volunteer work with a legal aid organization helping wrongfully accused individuals navigate the justice system. My experience provided both perspective and practical knowledge for others facing similar situations. Each person I helped reinforced the importance of standing firm in one's truth even when those closest to you fail to support it. Looking back, the ordeal taught me invaluable lessons about resilience, boundaries, and the true meaning of family. The people who stand by you in your darkest moments, who believe in your integrity without requiring proof, who offer support without conditions, those are your real family, whether connected by blood or by choice. I now understand that forgiveness is a gift I give myself, not an absolution I provide to others. Boundaries are not punishments, but necessary protections. Trust once broken can be rebuilt, but it requires consistent truth and genuine accountability from all involved. If you have experienced betrayal by those who should have protected you, know that healing is possible. Your worth is not diminished by others' actions. Standing in your truth may be the hardest thing you ever do, but authentic self-advocacy creates the foundation for genuine healing. What family betrayal have you experienced, and how did you find your way forward? Share your story in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear that they are not alone in their journey. Thank you for listening, and remember that your story matters, your boundaries matter, and your truth matters most of all.